Hi, I'm Shane.
And I'm Erica.
For the past 3.5 years, we've been traveling the world together.
People always ask us how we get to travel so often and go to so many places, and we want to show you how we do it. So come on this adventure with us.
We are the Nowhere Couple.
Welcome back to Worldwide. This is Season 2, Episode 5. I'm Erica.
And I'm Shane.
On this episode, we will be talking about points and miles. So just hopping right into it, do you want to explain what points and miles are and what they could be used for?
Sure. Points and miles are basically the currency of the frequent traveler. So we're talking credit card points, hotel points, as well as airline miles today. So basically you earn these things for every step of the way along your travel or spending, and they're redeemable for essentially free travel.
Sounds good to me.
It always sounds good on paper, but you have to learn how to work the system to really make it work in your favor.
All right. So how do you gain miles and points?
So I would say the number one way is just with flights and hotel stays right off the bat. I mean, having a frequent flyer number or a hotel number basically for, let's say, Marriott and Delta or United and Hilton, anything like that, you'll basically earn points based on a predetermined number for the amount of nights you either stay at a hotel or for how many miles you actually fly on the plane. There are also a bunch of other ways to gain miles. So like credit cards are a huge way to do it, specifically travel credit cards. You can earn up to a couple points a dollar you spend on a credit card. And you should also be aware that there are some amazing sign-up bonuses for credit cards. So those being, let's say you spend $3,000 in the first, it's either 2 or 3 months usually, you get, let's say, 50 to 100,000 miles bonus. And for some people, that's, more than they could ever gain in a year flying. And right there, you have 2 or 3 round trip flights to Europe or even one round trip flight to Asia. Shopping portals are the lesser known, I would say, of how to gain airline miles or credit card points or hotel points. So if you search your preferred airline or hotel, usually followed by shopping portal, they will present to you all the stores and businesses that they've partnered with that if you shop on their store through this portal website, you can earn 8 miles a dollar and things like that. And it's pretty much every store you could imagine. I mean, there's Macy's, Neiman Marcus, Apple is on there, Nike, Under Armour. So a lot of people just miss those miles completely. You're shopping on websites that they would be shopping anyway. So it's a great way to kind of earn miles behind the scenes and do it on a daily basis, especially if you're an online shopper. I mean, how many of us are, especially in today's day and age, it's almost nobody going into stores anymore. It's all done online. So this is a great way to earn on every purchase you make, and then double dipping as well by using your airline credit card. So you can transfer points then into your Sky Miles account or your United Mileage Plus or American Advantage, as well as going through the portal. And then the last way that I would say to earn miles to a substantial rate would be look at some partners that's partners with your preferred airline. So I know for Delta, there's Hertz and Lyft. So every dollar spent in a Lyft is a mile to Delta, and same with Hertz.
So does that apply to how you said Delta and Hilton and then also United and Marriott?
The opposite, but yes.
All right.
So you can earn points on your hotel stay that you can then directly transfer to an airline. Sometimes it's at a diluted rate. So I would say maybe 10,000 Marriott points are really only worth 2,500 airline miles, let's say. I know that their primary partner, though, you get a better rate on the transfer. So I think Marriott and Delta have a relatively low one compared to Marriott and some other airlines.
Okay.
And vice versa is also true. You can transfer airline miles to hotels, that specifically within the partner.
All right, that's good to know. A lot of info. So with that being said, should you be loyal to only one airline or should you try to go for a lot of different ones?
I mean, there really isn't a wrong way to go about that. I think if you're somebody who loyalty isn't that important and maybe you're not a super frequent flyer, you're not going to be racking up hundreds of thousands of miles on one airline, then your best bet is to not put all your eggs in one basket. And the best way to do that would really be with a travel credit card because I don't want to say have unlimited transfers, but there are a lot of partners with the credit cards rather than when you're stuck with your miles just within the airline. So let's say the Chase Sapphire Preferred card is a very popular card with travelers because you can transfer points to airlines like United, Emirates, and those go really far, especially when you're looking to try to do, let's say, a business class seat on miles. When you use credit card points and you can transfer to Emirates business class, that's sometimes a $10,000 seat. So you're really saving a lot of money by doing that.
I want that business class seat now.
Emirates is amazing. And then just, trying to keep, and if you are more of a frequent flyer, then you want to kind of try to keep, let's say, in your circle, the points and miles that you do gain. You would want them to be transferable between each other. So American Express works with Delta very often. And then obviously Marriott or Hilton, whatever hotel chain you decide to use, you also want to make sure that those points that you earn on that are also transferable to your preferred airline. So just making sure that if you are more of a frequent flyer, you want to be able to transfer the miles to where you'll actually use them on your preferred airline. So
Right.
it's, it gets complicated, but, our example is we're frequent with Marriott. And I have it set up so that every time we stay in a Marriott hotel, which Marriott Bonvoy's got an extensive list of partners. I mean, the Ritz-Carlton, Sheraton's, all that fall under the Marriott category. So I have it set up where every time the miles don't even deposit into my hotel account, they go directly into my Delta account. And for me, that makes sense because I know chances are 9.5 out of 10 times we'll be flying Delta my next flight. And I do want to have the option to use those miles if needed.
So it's not like you could get hotel points and miles. You have to choose which one you want to go with in
Yes.
that situation.
In that situation, yes, you would have to choose where those miles get deposited, and it's the same with when you're flying. It's one or the other basically.
Okay.
But where you can double dip is with what credit card you use. So it is possible to earn whatever bonus it is for your credit card. I know a lot are different, but let's just say on average it's 3 points to the dollar spent. So you can earn, if you spend $100 a night for 2 nights, then you're looking at 600 points. So you can earn that on your credit card and then as well still earn the points from the hotel stay to your Marriott or to your airline account or wherever.
I feel like that's a kind of a hack that could be useful for many
Yes,
people.
you always want to make sure that you double dip wherever possible. And really that comes into play with airline and hotel plus a credit card.
Makes sense. So once you collect hopefully thousands upon thousands of points and miles, what's the best way to then redeem them?
Business class is definitely the number one option.
I know you love that.
Business class tickets can run so expensive, and there are valuations for points with every airline. Each mile is only worth a couple cents, but when you add that up, let's say you spend 80,000 on a business class ticket from the United States to, say, Tel Aviv, you end up spending only $1,000 worth of points for a $8,000 seat. And that's where you're really going to save the money. So that, to me, is always the best option. And upgrading is the same thing. I would say sometimes you actually even get a little bit better of a value with upgrading because you've already paid for the economy ticket. So you're paying a discounted business class rate once you upgrade after the original purchase and reservation is made. And feel like that's really where you get a lot of value for your miles as well. And the same goes for staying in hotels. I mean, you can upgrade almost any room in a hotel. I mean, most go up to a presidential suite or something like that. Or the best use of them, I would say, is those overwater bungalows.
Oh, I want one.
I know, right? How picture perfect are those, and Bora Bora and stuff. I mean, how crazy. So to be able to afford something like that at a manageable price is, just transfer however many American Express points or Chase points.
And it sounds like you could essentially end up staying in one for free just by making everyday purchases.
Exactly. And I know and I've seen a lot of examples too where people extend trips, they'll pay for 3 nights out of pocket and then 2 nights out of miles. And that's a good way, to extend a trip if you don't want to put out all that money instead of just trying to do the whole trip on just points. You want to be able to stretch them as far as they'll go. So using them is also important because this currency is completely made up by airlines and hotel chains and credit card companies. So the value of them can go through the roof or they can go kind of like crypto, right? Just go to nothing. It's just who knows what it is, who knows what it's going to do tomorrow. The airline could just say they're worthless and move on. And a lot of people think that spending them right away when you have them is best. You don't want to have 1,000,000 miles sitting in your account doing nothing because tomorrow they could be worthless. Where is if you book a flight with them and the miles go worthless the next day, you still have that flight.
Is it possible at all that the value of them could go up significantly, though?
I really think that depends on the route, essentially. I think it's all in the eye of the beholder, how valuable the mile is, so to speak. I don't think in terms of the regular fluctuation that they become so valuable. I think it's more, where do you find good value? Some people may say the value of flying Emirates business class is beyond anything, where some people may think that it just comes with booking economy flights.
And then maybe gaining 2 extra nights.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, for the cost of, let's say, an Emirates business class ticket, you could probably book 2 or 3 round trip tickets in economy. So, it's really just all in the eye of the beholder and how you really feel is best for you is the best way to use them. Domestic flights in the United States are really a major way to take advantage of miles. As I think I showed you the other day, I mean, flights on, and I speak for Delta because that's just what I know the best. That is my airline. And, I've flown some United, not as much American. I could say pretty similar for United, that the flights within the U.S. are the cheapest when you use miles. So there are the premium routes, the JFK to LAX to San Francisco, that, it's like flying to London. There are the days where it's very cheap, but for the most part, it's above everything else. But if you're paying with miles, you're not paying. At least no money is coming out of your pocket. But, let's say you're flying to Tampa from New York, or you're flying to Dallas, or, one of those cities that's not a transcontinental route, the value of the mile does go up, I think, because you're spending, let's say, 5,000 to 10,000 miles round trip. And with the valuation of the points and the miles there, it could be, simply a $90 flight for you. Whereas the actual cost of the flight would be $300, which is ridiculous how expensive it is to fly in the U.S. I mean, in Europe, just pay the fare, right? The $40 is to fly anywhere.
Pocket change.
So I would say that that's probably the best value that you're going to get is flying within the continental United States. I mean, there are still days where the value is good from coast to coast, but within the coast, in the confines of the coast, is usually where you'll find the best value. And then also there are, I would say, more mileage sales than there are actual fare sales, because the airlines want to reward their frequent flyers more and then encourage people to fly with that airline and make them want to accumulate these miles in hopes that the fares will be low. I mean, we've found some cheap cash fares in our time, but I spend almost every day scouring the internet for that. And the last time that we went to Italy was on a mileage fare, and I think we paid about 29,500 miles to go from JFK to Milan. That's pretty good, especially if a sign-up bonus on a credit card is 80,000 miles.
Sounds like you could do at least 2 flights then with
Exactly. And that's round trip. And then, the fees are whatever, $50, but
for a
That's
free
a pretty,
flight,
yeah, that's a pretty good
$50
deal.
for a flight,
Yeah, unfortunately, the taxes can't get covered in miles because,
which hopefully one day.
well, death and
But
taxes, they're guaranteed even on airline flights. So it's tough to avoid that, but for $50, it's pretty good fare. I know for a lot of European airlines, Virgin Atlantic specifically, I think it's mostly out of the UK. I don't know why their taxes are so crazy. You can spend upwards of like $300 in fees, even for using miles. So it's nice that Delta and Virgin are partners, obviously, but to spend that much extra when you could just spend like the $12, it's really crazy to me. I don't understand. It's a UK, I think, specific thing, and I just don't understand it. But kind of takes away. But I would say fly a U.S. airline if you're flying to Europe because of that. And then also another interesting way to use miles is club access, so lounge access. I again speaking just for Delta here, they offer a membership yearly that can be either paid. I think it's $540 for an individual membership, or $850, let's say, for like an executive membership, they call it. And I think you get up to like 3 free guests that way. But the individual membership, it's just yourself that gets access. But you can also pay for that with miles. So I think it comes out to 54,000 miles or 85,000 miles. Not a great value, not a great use, especially if you're somebody who kind of has those kind of miles to throw around. Chances are you're already an elite member with that airline. But it is interesting, and it's definitely something to keep on the table, because it is basically using a fake currency to pay for food, alcohol, and if you're somebody who travels a couple times a week, I think you definitely would see a lot of value in that.
even we travel a couple times every few months, and I think that you get a lot of value out of that, out of the club access.
Yeah, the club access, I like. The Sky Clubs are great. I mean, they have some of the fastest Wi-Fi I've ever worked with.
So important.
So especially coming from a Friday workday, going right to the airport, and then for my position being a photographer, having to upload photos, which are no small files. I mean, it's gigabytes of data, and to be able to just have that in the blink of an eye, and then I'm sit back, have a beer, watch some TV, just be left alone
Yeah.
is really what it's about. And sometimes I do miss people watching, but overall, I think the lounge is a great place to be. And if you're a frequent flyer, and 50,000 miles is nothing to you, then I would say do it, especially if you don't have a credit card that grants you access, or you don't have a high enough status that grants you access. It's definitely something that you can find a lot of value in.
Great. So now that we have all of this awesome information about points and miles, I think there is one key question left.
What would that be?
Once you obtain all of these points and miles, do they expire? Or do you have a time limit or some type of limit in which you need to use them by?
Yeah, so again, speaking for the big three, the United States Airlines, so American, United, and Delta. Delta and United, actually during the pandemic, both came out and said their miles will now no longer expire. It used to be 24 months of no account activity, no miles coming in, no miles going out, just zero account activity, which again, for the frequent flyer, 2 full years of nothing would be crazy. But I think at the start of this pandemic, nobody really knew how far it was going to go. So they just said, you know what? They don't expire. Don't worry about it. And I think it was a great move by the airlines, because I definitely think that generated loyalty with people who like to spend miles. And I think it worked on a bigger scale for them, because I think then people who are proficient with using points and miles started moving all their credit cards, all their hotel stays, everything to within that Delta or United like family of companies. So from a business standpoint, I think it was a great move too. And American Airlines has not budged on it. They are still at 18 months of no activity, and your miles will expire with them, which is unfortunate. But again, if you're somebody who has 300,000 miles in your account, chances are you're flying pretty frequently enough anyway. And you can also do something as simple as spend $50, buy 1,000 miles on their website, and that'll count and reset your 18 months. So, I mean, there are ways around it. So,
Now, I'm interested to know, do you have a favorite or best use of miles or points that you can recall?
That's a pretty good question. Um, well, I can think of one that almost was, and while I'm explaining, maybe I'll think of one that was a definite great use. But we in I think it was May of 2020 had scheduled flights to go to Bali,
TBT. Oh my gosh.
right? And I think we got a mistake fare on that flight, and we paid. I think it was $700 round trip a person from the United States with a stop in Sydney, Australia.
Oh.
So like the dream trip, my mom hopped right on. She was like $700, please. Like she's always wanted to go to Bali, and we were like, well, come on, like this isn't gonna last very long because they're gonna realize it's a mistake up there. And then when we booked the flights, I called to do it to make sure, and the woman was like, it's a mistake fare, you got it. So I like that airlines honor that. Honestly, I think that's it happens because every other flight was 1,700. And I think somebody just forgot to input the one on that one. It worked really well for us. And I used miles to upgrade us to business class from LA to Sydney both ways. And for a 15.5 hour flight, I think it was only like 60,000 or 70,000 miles total a person. So 35,000 about one way. I mean, to me, there really can't be a better use than that on one of the longest flights in the world. To spend in a lie flat bed, and the Delta business class has doors on it, and it's it's an individual pod, and for privacy on an airplane, I mean, how much better does it get than that? But I will say, I think recently the best value had to have been that trip to Italy. I think, yeah, spending under 30,000 miles a person round trip, again going with my mom, I think it makes what sometimes can feel like an unmanageable cost or an unmanageable trip manageable. And I think really that's what it's about. I mean, there are great uses for miles everywhere. Emirates first class, and I know we've been talking about their business class, but their first class can be a ticket that not even the Beatles could afford. It's like a $40,000 one way seat. It's who would pay that? But it only transfers sometimes to like 100,000 credit card points. And not saying that that's cheap, but if you have a goal of doing that and saving up, it's very attainable. People do it all the time. And you get the caviar and the Dom Perignon. It's you get the works with that kind of seat. And I mean, the champagne probably costs more than you pay in miles for that seat. So that's really what it's about. It's finding that kind of value. But I would say Italy was probably a great use because my mom and you got to come out, and again, you only came out for a couple days, and you probably wouldn't have spent the $800 out of pocket to do that, but you would spend $50 in taxes and fees to do that. So that's what it's about, is definitely just making it count and making something happen when otherwise you really wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice way of looking at it is, yeah, you could get, the business class, the first class, all of kind of the fancy things with points and miles, but it's nice knowing that you can make trips happen even with an economy seat that maybe you couldn't have afforded with cash.
No, I mean, you get to the destination the same time as everybody else. There's nothing wrong with an economy seat ever, in my opinion. I mean, sure, they're not that comfortable, sure, whatever, but I think you and I have flown economy on some of the longest flights in the world. I mean, New York to Hong Kong, and it's not like we're still recovering from that. It was fine, and you don't even think about it, afterwards. It's just you just move on. So, I think that I would rather spend miles on 100 round trip economy tickets than 20 business class seats.
I agree. Yeah, I feel the same. But like you also mentioned, if someone does have a goal of, one day flying first class on Emirates, it's nice to also now have that actually be an option.
Absolutely attainable then. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. And you could be the person then that achieves that goal by only flying in economy. And you could say one day, you'll be at the front. And yeah, I'm sure it's a great experience. I don't think it's ever something that we will ever experience unless Emirates wants to hook us up. But I think generally speaking, nobody can really afford that ticket. And it's just great to see, people work the system. in a way to I don't want to say cheat an airline out of $40,000 and then all that great, top tier booze and food that you get on that flight. And they have showers on those, and the bathroom floor is heated, and it's like, well, like if that's what you're after and you want to achieve that, you can without saving $40,000. Again, because you can right off the bat, if you sign up for one of these credit cards, you could be 80,000 points in after only spending, let's say, $3,000, and $3,000 is a lot less than the 40,000 that seat might cost.
Especially if it's 3,000 that you spend on food, gas, like again, just the typical everyday expenses.
No, exactly. So, it's some people have multiple cards. So if you, do go for one of these signups, then maybe you want to just make that your main card for the 3 months until you hit that spend. I mean, sometimes it's 3,000, sometimes it's 2,000. It all depends. And, you should always keep your eye out for those kind of offers, because every once in a while there are those 100,000, 110,000 mile offers that are too good to pass up sometimes. And especially if your goal is to fly one of these crazy seats, that's a really, really great place to start.
Great.
Hope I've been able to answer everything here for you.
Of course. I mean, I definitely learned a lot, more than I ever thought was even possible about points and miles, and I hope that the audience also learned something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to answer anything. Again, I'm most proficient in Delta, but I guess I could plug the Points Guy here too. Just the Points Guy. They've pretty much taught me everything that I know about it, and I'm sure if your airline is British Airways or Cathay Pacific, whatever else is out there, they can teach you how to do it perfectly. But if you want to know about Delta or United, I'm your guy. So, awesome.
Great.
Cool. Well, hopefully we will see you guys out there, and hopefully you'll be doing it on miles.
Yeah, and if you do ever happen to book a trip using miles, let us know. We'd love to hear all about it. Love to know how you went about it and how the trip went. So we'll see you out there.